If it's for sale in the grocery store, it's past some threshold of safety. I really believed it. I thought that was true of pharmaceuticals too.
Yeah.
It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show.
Well, a warm welcome to you all. I'm JJ. I'm a life coach and I eat mostly meat.
I'm Eric. I'm a novelist and I eat mostly meat.
And I've been watching some YouTubers lately. Shocking, I know. My day is full of carnivore YouTubers. But I was watching someone relatively new who had fallen off the wagon.
Yep.
And was now back on the wagon for
Okay.
good, she says.
Okay.
And it got me to thinking, there comes a point when carnivore kind of clicks. Like, I can't imagine falling off the wagon. And this isn't any shade toward her at all. But for me, there were these periods where I just got this knowingness or this evidence of, wow, carnivore really, really does work. Like, what brought you back in October of 2022? You started carnivore for half a minute.
Yes, I did.
But what was it that at that point that clicked and you're like, okay, I'm going to start this diet?
It was a little bit of desperation. I was at my heaviest and I was not feeling well. And I had done keto so many times with success, but I had never gotten the full healing by doing keto because there were certain foods that I was continuing to eat. So while I could lose weight and make some progress, mental health issues, IBS, acid reflux, and just general sense of getting fragile faster than I was aging was just, it left me in a conundrum. And I don't remember what podcasts or videos or inputs kind of brought me to, you know what, it's time to try to go another level harder on this with carnivore. But I think it was just, repeated exposures to people who were doing it with some success, maybe even from Joe Rogan. And probably Mikhaila Peterson talking about it opened the window to it a little bit. So, yeah, I think that's why it clicked well enough that I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot.
Now, for me, I started with intermittent fasting. My doctor prescribed that to me to work on insulin resistance. And I'd been doing intermittent fasting for a while and seen some benefits, but nothing major. And I read Dr. Fung's book, actually 2 of his books, and started to learn about insulin. But I didn't really think about anything until you came home talking about how we all need to have more protein in our diet.
That was because I'd heard the same guy on 2 different podcasts, and he was talking about the importance of large amounts of protein per dose in order to trigger some sort of mTOR effect. And that was his whole research. And that led me to go, well, maybe I'm not getting enough protein. Well, I obviously was not.
Obviously. So you mentioned that, and I treated it with a grain of salt, really, because you've brought home a lot of different health protocols and food protocols through the years. So I didn't think much of it, but then Dr. Barry started showing up in my feed. And based on what I'd already learned from Dr. Fung, I started watching Dr. Barry videos. And of course, you were talking protein. So it all sort of, the worlds collided. Yeah. And I started watching those videos. And that's when it clicked for me that I really needed to lower my insulin to get more results as far as treating my insulin resistance. Go figure. But my doctor never talked about insulin resistance specifically either. So that's how I started the carnivore diet. That was back in October of 2022.
Yeah, I think my doctor used the words, the beginnings of metabolic syndrome.
Okay. That makes sense.
Which I was very well versed in and understood what he was saying. And I was like, yeah, I think that's probably true based on what I'm seeing here in these labs.
Yeah.
So that made me very concerned because I was well enough versed in metabolism by that point, having done all the keto stuff so many times, that I knew what the trajectory was, and I did not want to go down that path because I already felt sick. I didn't want to get sicker, and you should do it because you're appealing and I'm repulsive.
Hey, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. It makes all the difference in the world, not only to us, but to YouTube.
I thought you were going to say to you too, because then it makes a difference to them because then they see more of our content.
That's true. Do you want us showing up in your feed?
Of course you do. Why wouldn't you want that?
Right. Like and subscribe. Carnivore, I don't know what clicked for me to start losing weight. It took 7 months, and I don't remember changing anything in my diet at that time. It just sort of spontaneously started to happen. But you had noticed at that point my body recomposition.
Yes.
And you came to me and said,
you're aging in reverse. What are you doing?
Yes. And I told you what I was doing because that's the first I mentioned that I was really doing carnivore. And something clicked for you at that point, I feel like.
Well, what clicked was that it was obviously working because there was body recomposition, but she was noticeably younger looking because the when that initial inflammation and puffiness vanishes, it changes how gravity's affecting the face. And so she was looking younger.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that is crazy.
Yeah. So you jumped on board again.
Yeah.
You re-jumped.
Yeah, I re-jumped and did beef, bacon, butter, and eggs and got back going.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I started, that was great confirmation for me. I already was staying the course, but that was like, oh, wow, this is really working. If it's being noticed by someone else, this is really working. And at that point was when I started to, it was about a month later that I did start to lose weight very slowly. So that was, again, further proof that everything was really working for me. Now, for you, you just think keto and you drop several pounds.
Yeah, it just happens very quickly.
So you knew it was working as far as that went pretty quickly,
Yeah.
as far as weight.
But on keto, I had always retained some IBS issues and acid reflux. And when the reflux I just noticed it was like, I don't need to get up in the middle of the night to eat a Tums or take some pink, what do you call it, Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
That was very noticeable, like improvement in life. But then when the gut pains and stuff eased, that was just another one of those things. Plus, you drop 10, 15 pounds and the pants that had been too tight for so long suddenly aren't so constrictive. Quality of life is improved dramatically when you unshrink my pants.
Which I think, really, we talk a lot about the scale. And I think what people want from the scale is actually improved quality of life. They want to look better, but they mostly want to feel better.
Yeah, I think that's true, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I think when you're really young and vain.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
You're not, but that's the problem. When I was young, I was already starting to have some acid reflux, but I had grown up with someone who ate Tums like candy. So I just thought it was just part of being an adult. And so I didn't think that it was a signal that something was wrong with diet or with health. I thought that's just what happened. And only now do I realize, no, that was a big warning flag way back when I was 21, but I ignored it.
So those warning signs, I can go back so very early in my life and see warning signs.
So this is one of the things that clicks, is the things that you've been suffering from for decades vanish. And then it clicks that, holy cow, the stuff that I was eating was making me sick way back when I was young, and I didn't recognize that it was related to the food for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then if I had only been eating more like carnivore, maybe I could have even buffered more carbs and veg today than I can.
Yeah.
Because I would have gotten so dysregulated over so much exposure to those things.
So for me, I noticed one of the early signs for me that it was working were allergies, which came on when I was about 12 years old. I started to get hay fever and had bouts of it being better and worse through my adulthood. But by the time I came to Carnivore, my eyes were so sensitive to the environment, to makeup, to moisturizer, to everything that they were burning out of my skull nonstop. And once I started with the carnivore diet, that was one of the things that resolved very quickly. Within a few days, I noticed that my eyes were significantly better.
This is making me have a thought that might be an aside.
Oh, no, not an aside. We never do asides here.
So one of the things that we've noticed since being long-term carnivores is if something gets introduced to our systems that's bad for us, we notice it. And so there's two ways to view this. One is, carnivore has weakened you, so you're so sensitive to these other things that it's making you fragile and vulnerable. But the more realistic view is you've taken all that stuff out, you're more sensitive to poison. And so you can detect whether something is bad for you much easier because it makes you feel bad. And that's a good thing because then you can notice that and then not do it, which makes more sense from a survival standpoint.
Well, I was thinking about that, that old joke, when I move my arm this way, doc, it hurts. And the doctor
Don't move your arm that way.
Yeah, right? And I think that's really the principle here is that we discover that root cause. When we move our arm this way, it hurts. When we ingest that
seed oil,
that plant toxin, that oxalate, whatever it is, it hurts. And we don't notice it at first.
Because we're always in pain when we're eating that stuff. We're always inflamed.
And this leads me also to when things clicked for me that this was how I was going to eat the rest of my life. I mean, again, we're not perfect. We go off. Sometimes I have a salad or some marinara on my carnivore pizza, right? And I'm going to be meat-based for the rest of my life because I achieved a level of physical vigor and mental health that I did not know was possible for me or possible at all. And what you're saying, we get so normalized. We expect to need to take Tums when we're an adult. We expect to slow down. We expect to maybe have our mood diminish and our memory diminish and all these things that are really metabolic issues more than just aging issues.
Yes. And so now that the paradigm is shifting for some to look at pretty much all diseases, maybe we should be looking at the metabolic dysfunction as the root of it. It makes so much sense. So carnivore helps you click in to the importance of obviously diet, but also other environmental exposures and other things that are exposures that are not human proper exposures.
Yes.
The proper human exposure, you could think of pre-agriculture. There's a proper human exposure to day-night cycle. Probably light. There is some discussion that LEDs are pretty toxic light because of the limited spectrum. Definitely, we know that sunlight is good for us, not bad for us. Although I don't recommend going out and just scorching yourself in the blazing noonday sun because, the proper human exposure would have been like, oh, I'm too hot and my skin is burning. I know. I'll go in the shade.
You mean they weren't like slathering beef tallow on themselves and going, I
don't think that they were trying to bake themselves. But even information can be proper human info, which isn't to say you should be an ignoramus. It just means that you don't need to be flooding your consciousness with bad news 24/7.
Well, and I'm glad you moved into this. I was hoping you would.
You know me, I will abstract and go meta on any topic.
No, but you what clicked for you hugely? You've said this, you cannot believe that changing your way of eating completely shifted your paradigm around how to live your life.
Yes. I had been so much into, if it's for sale in the grocery store, it's past some threshold of safety. I really believed that. I thought that was true of pharmaceuticals too.
Yeah.
I worked indirectly in that Uber industry. And so I was like, oh yeah, if you can get it through the FDA, yeah, there's side effects, but they're just rare statistical outlier cases. Everything gets flipped, which isn't to say that there aren't pharmaceuticals that are beneficial when needed.
Yeah.
And I certainly, if we're starving, I'll eat the wheat, but that's not where I'm going to start from during normal times.
Yeah. So when did that click for you, would you say?
Well, I think after we had been doing YouTube for a little while and we started talking about carnivore as a skill, which did not go over well.
No.
Viewers were like, I don't care about that. And the way I knew that they thought this, because they didn't watch it very long and they didn't say anything about, oh, wow, that blew my mind, because it blew mine. But when I started thinking of carnivore as a skill, it really, you just can back up out of skills. What does that mean? It's like, how does any animal of any species be successful in its life? It is skillful and successful at food, shelter, water, reproduction. And the ones that aren't skillful at it, they don't continue. And I think we grew up in a context where a lot of the basics are just delivered to us. And then all of a sudden they're delivered to us in a form that sustains us, but doesn't support long-term health. And because it's kind of a slow motion avalanche, you're not really noticing it because it's accumulating over decades rather than immediately. And so to snap out of into awareness and going, holy cow, I'm in the path of an avalanche of the sad diet and all these other modern exposures, wakes you up. And suddenly you look around and you're like, oh my goodness, we've built an entire city in the path of an avalanche.
But remember, the experts that we've grown up with have told you this is safe. This isn't an avalanche zone. This is safe. You're good to go.
Yeah. Well, they were looking at a mountain slope across the valley and going, oh, nothing will happen. And then we built our city under the most precarious position because they were looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a really strained analogy. I feel like as a writer, I could have done better if I'd planned it, but that's what came to me in the moment. What does this mean?
What does this mean?
This means that we are going to continue doing carnivore or something very close to it. I want to actually talk about that because I get so exhausted by carnivore gatekeeping. Now, I don't see a lot of it, but occasionally it pops up. And language really is very helpful when it's super precise. And so I understand the personality who wants it to mean, well, carnivores eat meat, and
Period.
That's what meat is carny. And then I go, yeah, I know. But if I say carnivore-ish, that's just an extra wasted syllable. And so I could say carnivore-like or carnivore-esque. That was like almost a Chandler Bing hand motion I did there, and it was completely off camera, and we lost it. Carnivore-esque. Nobody even knows who Chandler Bing is anymore. Can you believe that? Proper human entertainment was there for the taking, and people don't even know it exists.
Oh my goodness.
What was I talking about?
You were talking about language.
Language.
And being specific in...
Yeah. So we have this spectrum of the proper human diet from something approximating primal ancestral all the way to carnivore to lion. I'm guessing there's something past lion.
Probably.
I think that's where the horseshoe of diets actually happens, because then it's not eating at all. And then you get to be a vegan fasting next to a lion fasting.
Yeah.
And you're the same.
So what is your point, though, about the specific language?
Is on this channel, and for our viewers, we are not going to say you're not a carnivore or you're not doing it right.
No.
Because our own experience is that it's very individual, and what you can tolerate and what's good for you depends on you and your own experience. And sometimes you want to do a little period where you're tightening things up and keeping things out. And sometimes you maybe want to loosen it up and include some things that are not strictly carnivore, like a little marinara, like a little bit more cheese, maybe even some herbs and spices. But then, because you're a finely tuned carnivore, you can tell right away whether that was a problem.
Yeah.
Because you go, oof, I feel kind of off. And then you go back, I guess it was those herbs I put on my steak.
Yeah.
And then you look at the container and you're like, maltodextrin.
What? Dextrose? What?
Sugar. MSG. Filler.
So as you
Soy lecithin.
Oh, not the soy lecithin.
I think soy lecithin would be a great name for a punk band.
Don't call us vegetarian. We eat everything we can. We live on soy lecithin. Soy lecithin. Soy lecithin.
So
Is punk even a genre anymore?
I don't know.
I think Green Day kind of ended that, didn't they?
Oh, so carnivore clicked in.
Yes, it did.
In many levels.
Right.
Yeah.
So have we padded this to be long enough for YouTube to like it? I think we have.
You think
Because if these people who are watching this particular part of it are still here, we've done our job.
after the whole Chandler Bing thing and everything?
I think the Chandler Bing thing might be a gray filter, that there's going to be a certain cohort that once they hear that, they're going to be like, I'm out. But there's going to be another cohort that's like,
So we'd love to hear from you in the comments whether you have had these carnivore epiphanies. When did carnivore click for you? Every day stronger?
every day more blessed.
JJ and Eric, their lipids are high. Their doctors are worried they're both gonna die. Is LDL harmless? They sure hope it's so. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. Salad is toxic, seed oils are doom. They rub on tallow like greasy perfume. Ribeyes and bacon, that's all they know. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. No wheat, no kale, they're laughing at greens. 18-hour fasts are their favorite routines. Sugars for suckers, they're chomping on fat. Streaming to you live from the tallow fat. Eric's got muscles, JJ's got zen. They're coming to chat with their carnivore friends. So toss out the lettuce, embrace the beef glow. It's the JJ and Eric